Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call this afternoon, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you. For those of you that have been following us for the last few weeks, actually going on 2 months, we have dispensed with our full call for the very simple reason that the increased number of new clients and requests for service from our existing clients made it impossible for us to ethically continue to market the trust, so we decided to suspend it until such time as we could catch up with the workload. We have just about done that. At the worst point, we were behind by some 200 requests. We've got that down to about 24. So we're going to go ahead today and resume with a normal call, and we're going to continue to do this on a week-to-week basis, but I think we finally got a handle on the workload, and we're providing everyone with the needed information. Our routine calls, we take a few minutes to talk about the situation as it exists in Iraq, as we continue to believe that the Iraqi dinar of some of these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A, and that's what we intend to do today. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the situation in Iraq. First, I'd like to just briefly review and touch on some of the things that we discussed last week. We talked about Iraq's importance both geographically and geopolitically. We also discussed in detail why, in our opinion, we consider Iraq to perhaps be the richest nation per square mile in the world. We talked about the international community anxious for the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar for a number of reasons, but primarily because since 2003, the international community has dumped about $4 trillion into helping to resurrect Iraq, and they simply want their money back with profit. The IMF also wants to see the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar because the Iraqi dinar, along with some of these other pre-valued currencies, will then simultaneously be depegged from the U.S. dollar and repegged to the IMF basket of currencies. This is an intermediate step for their objective and the ultimate goal, which is a one-world digital currency, something which I believe we're going to be able to avoid if we take the exchange dollars and invest them in tangible assets, but we'll be getting into that in a little bit more detail later. Now, the first thing I want to say before we get into the situation with Iraq is by way of disclaimer. Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but we are sharing with you the relevant information since we are substantial holders of these currencies ourselves. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the dinar. While it's not likely, it is still possible for the dinar to reinstitute in country in the month of May. And we've only got about 10 or 12 days left in the month, but that is still a possibility. Of course, between now and the end of the year, there are a number of reasons why the CBI is going to have to reinstitute their currency, but we're still looking at May as a possibility. And I'd like to discuss with you a little bit more detail the reasons why and why the situation today is different than it's been in the past. First, Iraq, for the first time in a great number of years, is enjoying a substantial surplus. When they passed the 2021 budget last year, it was based on projected oil revenues on $45 a barrel. Now, you have to remember that 90% of the revenues enjoyed by the government of Iraq is through the sale of petroleum. Today, a barrel of crude is worth approximately $65 a barrel. So what this means is that 90% of the revenue that Iraq enjoys has increased by 45% in the last 4 months. So that's a completely different situation. They're not running deficits. They're not begging to borrow money. So the timing for the reinstitution of the dinar is at hand. In addition, we know that over the last few months, the CBI and the government have artificially devalued the provisional 3-0 currency, the dinar. Now, this has upset a lot of our clients who thought, well, the dinar is moving in the wrong direction. But remember, the objective is to delete, or as I would like to say, collect the 3-0 provisional currency. So the artificial devaluation of that currency, in our opinion, is the final step toward finally deleting or collecting all of the 3-0 currencies. In addition, as we speak, the CBI and the IMF are in meetings to discuss this final phase of the deletion of the zeros. In addition, China has been working diligently, and I would argue desperately, to consummate every possible deal that they can with Iraq. Why? Because they desperately need Iraqi crude, and so they're willing to assist Iraq in every way that they can. The international community also wants to see the rebuilding of the infrastructure of Iraq in order to increase the production and distribution of the oil as well. And the truth of the matter is, Iraq cannot be a world player without a functional global currency. They cannot fund the infrastructure of their country using their U.S. reserve dollars, because they need those U.S. reserve dollars to pay their employees, and most of the Iraqi citizenry are employees of the government, until they reinstitute their currency. So they're at the point now where not only do they need to reinstitute their currency, they're finally in a position where they can do so. So this is why, in our view, May is still a possibility for the reinstitution. But frankly, I can't think of a better scenario than what exists right now. They've basically checked for the first time all of the boxes necessary for a reinstitution. These things were not accomplished in 2012 and 2014 when they were close to a reinstitution. But at this point, the only remaining obstacle is some of the corruption in government. But some of the steps they have taken, as an example, the devaluation of provisional dinar, has taken away the leverage that these corrupt officials have enjoyed for close to 2 decades. So, in conclusion, May is still a possibility, but a reinstitution, in our view, could happen at any time. Now, as I've said in the past, and I hope I'm not too rusty because we haven't done this for some time, but most individuals in this country that are dinarians, that hold the dinar, are not wealthy, sophisticated currency traders. They're average, middle-class, hardworking Americans who, for the first time in their life, are going to be in the possession, literally overnight, of a substantial amount of wealth. And they're going to need some assistance to understand how to properly protect and grow that wealth. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It is a 2-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Now, the objective, of course, is to protect your wealth. And there are a number of ways that you can do that. Trusts Unlimited strongly believes that the best domestic asset protection available is a package of irrevocable trusts, but I want to touch on some of the other entities that individuals have established. Now, some people have established LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection. However, what the LLC and the sub-S corporations do is segregate business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that the currencies are a personal asset. In addition, some courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by a single individual or closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to be sufficient to provide asset protection. Some individuals have established something referred to as a revocable living trust, sometimes referred to loving trusts. Now, these trusts can exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, in some cases, can substantially reduce and even eliminate the federal estate tax. But the revocable living trust or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection. So they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and that will provide the best level of asset protection relative to the LLC, the sub-S corporation, and the revocable trust. But the single irrevocable trust has a flaw, and it's this. All of the assets are housed in that one individual trust, meaning that if any asset within that trust gets involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily bring the rest of your net worth into that litigation because it's all owned by the same entity. The solution is to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and in addition, that package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons. And I'd like to review quickly with you the reasons why a package of trusts would be superior to any other entity. First, by establishing this package of trusts, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our package are sealed, meaning that the general public would have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this package of trust, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time these currencies have revalued, and there's many other much more important things you'd rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust is enforced and you have assigned your currencies to that trust, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's only a 10% chance of an IRS audit if the taxable event of this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines that they want to do a 6-year audit, for practical purposes, they can't, for the very simple reason that the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends in certain situations. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the USD after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can give to them through our specially designed gift subtrust. And by giving through this gift subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, the language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning that you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And lastly, because you've gifted to them through this subtrust within the package, you will be able to directly manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to your heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the remaining $15 million could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property, the currency at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This is why we've created a package to protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy referred to as segregation of assets. Again, this is why we have established a package of trusts, and let me explain to you how this would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust, they subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by the master trust, the initial trust you established pre-RV to which you assigned your currencies. Now, how does this protect you? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you, but remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other net worth and assets are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after this revaluation. Now, I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. In addition, many of our clients have already expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with a direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists at that seminar. They will assist you with some of the more sophisticated tax strategies that the wealthy use in order to legally reduce their tax liability. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, fraud, and litigation. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So this is just another reason to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets. In addition, we know that the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create serious volatility in the financial markets. And so for that reason, you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. And you will receive all of the baseline information you're going to need after the revaluation of these currencies at our seminar. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and has the ability to manage all of the other sub-trusts. You will have one optional gift sub-trust, which can at any time be converted to a standard sub-trust, and then you will have 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this trust package has a one-time cost of $3,000. There are a number of ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. That's not possible. We have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would then need to be paid within 30 days. One additional suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your trust in force and your currencies assigned to that trust pre-RV for all of the reasons that we've discussed here. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in a moment, but before we do, and again for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation informational package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. When in point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances under our system of civil litigation is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for listening to the call. I'm going to open the Q&A. I'm going to be giving you our contact information. So if you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package, I suggest you have a pen and paper handy as I open the Q&A. One last point on the Q&A. We have 2 quick rules on the Q&A. This is reserved for people that have questions about our turnkey program. Our existing clients, if they have issues, can contact us either by phone or email. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed this live call today with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then you'll use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV. As a matter of fact, I can't remember when we sent our last email out. But once the reinstitution of the Dinar occurs, emails may go out as often as weekly. So let's go here to our Q&A. Our first call is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City.
Hey, Doug. Long time no speak. How you doing?
Very well. I have one question. You mentioned that the CBI and the IMF are in talks with each other, and what difference is it now than all the other times that they've been in, conference and deliberation?
Their previous year memorandum of understanding, it had also to do with establishing the education program. It had to do their problem with the auctions. They've been dealing with a lot of things. But after the CBI and the government artificially devalued the 3-0 provisional currency, that was a clear signal that Iraq was serious about the final phase of the deletion of the zeros. And so what they're really talking about, what's going to happen when Iraq can pick up the phone and say, guess what, we're all done, the deletion of zeros is completed. So,
well, you did mention the education program. Has there been any indication that might be ongoing or might be starting?
Yeah, it's my understanding is it's underway.
Oh, okay.
But but that process is going to take at least 30 days before it's theoretically they're going to reinstitute. So if they began a few weeks ago, which is my understanding, that's why I say May is a possibility, because if that program is completed and they inform the IMF that they have officially completed the deletion of the project to delete the zeros, then the next step logically is the reinstitution.
Very good. Well, it's been a long time. I hope they can put it together and we can move on. Well, thank you very much, Jim.
I feel you on this. I tell you, I'm in the same boat as you are, except I'm on these calls every week and now it's over 10 years. So we're all ready to move on. But I have a suspicion that they're lulling us to sleep, and then one day we're going to wake up and it's going to be on the news. No one else will understand it except the Dinarian, but I just have a feeling that they're just going to drop it on us, and I'd love to see it.
Do you think that there's any resistance from this current administration?
If there is, it's only because they get everything wrong. But remember, a lot of Democrats are Dinarians as well. So hopefully the one thing they understand is money. As much as they hate profit motive, at the end of the day, follow the money.
That's true. All right. Well, thank you, Jim. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye. Our next call is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Clay Blackwell. How are you this morning?
Hey, Clay. How you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm glad you opened it up to questions, and I appreciate that, and going through the program again. A lot's happened since the last time we had this session. But I wondered last week, for instance, the call that you did wasn't posted. It was actually the call prior to the call of last week where you mentioned being your Holy Week. I checked several times, and there was comments left on there. I guess you didn't have a chance to address them, but we never heard that call from last week.
Okay, I'm gonna get on the horn and put a fire under someone, because I was told that the day after I did that call, I contacted them and I was assured that it would be up. I was remiss in not double checking that. I'm going to get that call up if I have to reach through the phone and strangle someone. I'll take care of that. It was a good call. It was a short call, but I went into extreme detail about Iraq's natural resources and what's really going on in the country. So I will, as a matter of fact, I'm writing that down just to make sure. That's my first call when I get off of this call here and get that resolved, because that was an important, as far as I'm concerned, that was an important call.
I would appreciate that, because I wasn't able to get there for the first part of the call, and I kept checking, and it was never posted.
The call was only 15 minutes long. But
I know. It was a short call.
Yeah, but I mean, all I did was go into detail about the wealth of Iraq and what's going on, and so I will get back on that, and I'll get it up somehow. All right?
Okay. A couple other things I wanted to address. As you're fully aware, Iraq is trying to move their country towards serene sovereignty and get a lot of these foreign forces out of their country,
including us,
including the Americans. But I wanted to ask you this question, because you've never brought it up. Iraq is going to have an election in October coming up, where they're going to elect new officials, what have you. Are you aware that they're going to dissolve their government?
They might dissolve the government, and those elections might take place in August.
They could, but I think, truthfully, that they're going to dissolve the government. As you're aware, the Prime Minister and the President of the country have the right to terminate the government anytime they want.
Well, right. It's a parliamentary system, so it doesn't work like our system.
No, but in doing so, go ahead.
I was going to say, in order to dissolve the government, the coalition has to remain intact. I don't know that they have that coalition, but you're right. That could happen. On the other hand, what could happen is that the reinstitution could happen before then, in which case we don't care.
And exactly, we don't care. But I think that's their move towards stability, because if you recall, back in 2014, the CBI was going to revalue the currency. They even said they were going to revalue it, but there was no stability, and there was so much corruption going on in government. They were still auctioning off dollars. They've moved that to a digitized system to eliminate that, and now they want to eliminate their government and bring in all new MPs voted in by the citizens of Iraq. Even Kadhimi himself has been somewhat deceptive in saying that he wasn't going to run. You're hearing mixed information as to whether he's going to run or if he's not going to run. The other thing is this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he publicly stated that months ago that he had no intention of running, but since then he's gotten a lot of heat. But the reason he's gotten heat is because people think he's doing the right thing. So,
well, he is doing the right thing.
I know, which is why we don't want him to go. But remember, if you remember at the time, I said, well, the negative part of it is he's doing the right things, but the positive part of it is because he's not running for re-election, he can do the right thing and not worry about being re-elected. So we're on the fly with that one. We're just going to have to hope that the reinstitution comes before that. But I mean, that might be the catalyst for the reinstitution if it doesn't happen by then.
I honestly believe that Kadhimi has been there long enough. He's been in the Central Intelligence area of that country. He's kind of like a Putin in his own country. I think he's got more power and more clout than a lot of people give him credit for. And he knows how that system works. And he's not loyal to any particular bloc. So I think he might surprise us and just run, in which case, unless there's somebody better than him, that he could possibly lose. But this is the other thing I wanted to say. The CBI is lining up all their ducks to be certain that when they do revalue that currency, that it stays and that the people are ready for it. Like you said, they're bringing in the 3 zeroed notes. I've heard that from many different sources, that they're doing that. But it's ironic that they devalued their currency in December, and the fiscal year that most people believe is a calendar year, it didn't revalue the 1st of January. They didn't do their budget at the 1st of January. They did it the last day of March, which would be reflective of it being March through April. In other words, they haven't had a budget, I think since 2017, 2018, when it was still being under the IMF, and they were using the calendar year, because I think that's what the IMF used. Well, since then, they approved their budget, the 2021 budget, on March 31st, which would indicate that their fiscal year is March to April. In addition to that, the second half of that year would start in October, and that's when they're having these elections. And in my opinion, if they're going to revalue that currency, it could happen right around then. Or what they could do is, you realize they're looking to draft the 2022 budget in this year. They didn't say they were going to implement it, but draft it. If they draft that budget in this year, and it's a 3-year budget, they already know what the value of that dinar has got to be in order for them to move forward. In addition to that, they also need the assistance and the help of the international people that are coming in to rebuild their country. They're not going to do it with a program rate dinar. And you said yourself, they have to have an international currency for any of that to happen. So honestly, I think it's imminent that this currency is going to either revalue in October or sometime between October and December of this year.
And you actually gave me about 3 scenarios, and they're all entirely possible. The problem with Iraq is it's a tribal culture. Everyone's got their own agenda, and so it's a constant tug and pull, and so we're sort of hoping, that they get their act together. But there's too many players with too many different, objectives. So I'm going to stick with May is still a possibility. I can't see how they get through the year without a reinstitution. The other issue they have is they want to rebuild the infrastructure. If they want to continue to increase the production and distribution of petroleum globally, they can't use their U.S. dollars. Even though they're in surplus, they got a rearage they've got to pay. They've got to pay the employees. Most of their citizens are employed. They can't use the U.S. dollar to pay them and then pay these contracts. So their solution is to reinstitute their currency and go global. I mean, to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. So I hope it happens tomorrow, but I don't see how we get through the year without it getting done.
Well, I've had this currency for 16 years, and it's always tomorrow. So my question to you, and I'll let it go with this. What in your mind is their incentive to reinstitute or revalue their currency in May? What incentive do they have to do it now?
Well, the mere fact that they want to get all of the international players out of the country, the first thing they need to be able to do is feed themselves. They need their own currency. You're not an international country. You're not a sovereign nation if you don't have borders, and you're not a sovereign nation if you don't have your own currency. You're always beholden to someone if you're on their dime. So, that's the way I see it.
Interesting. I guess we'll see what happens. I think they're moving now to try to get all of the international forces out of their country to show the world that they are a sovereign country and can manage their own country. And it looks to me too like the Peshmerga and Baghdad forces are starting to work together to secure their borders. So those are all good signs. But I honestly believe that this thing is imminent by the end of this year or the first of next.
Well, the word imminent to many people would have a shorter duration. But like you said, if you've done something for 16 years, 4 months from now is imminent. So I agree with you there. I mean, I've been on for 16 years, but I've been on this ride for a long time, and I have no intention of getting off when, there's only a couple turns left. So, we'll see. But maybe we'll get lucky and it'll pop soon, and we can all head to the banks and then move on down the road. But we'll
like you, Jim, I'm ready for it to happen today.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Anyway, thank you. No.
Sure. Bye-bye now. Our next call is area code. It's another 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This is Harold. And
yes.
I just wanted to give you one less thing to do, if that's all right. And
okay.
stuff. I just want to clarify that the call did get corrected. I'm staring at it right now, and the title of it is called Correct Call from May 12th, from 5/12/2021, and it came up on a Sunday night, and I was looking for it for, like Clay was and stuff, and it came up Sunday night. So you've had 2,800 views of it, and 1 or 2 of those have been mine. And it came up on about May 16th, or a Sunday night. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that we, your followers, think you do a great job summarizing a complex mess and things, and you can kind of boil it down and things. I listen to some others sometimes, but it takes them 45 minutes to tell you not much. And so I appreciate the work you put into all this, and I too will be appreciating when this thing will finally revalue or change its rate.
Well, I appreciate very much your kind words, and I'm going to explain to you how I developed the ability to take a very complex situation and simplify it. I have 5 daughters.
Okay.
So I'm used to dealing with complex situations. But again, thanks so much. I'm glad that call's up because that saves me one one lecture.
Yeah, it's been up for days, and now the other call is up also. But but anyway, the one that's the right one is called Correct Call from 5/12/2021. That is, and
How'd
things,
you like
and
that call?
you'll see it. Pardon me?
How'd you like that call?
Oh, that was great. 14 minutes and 11 seconds. So that you got the right one. Okay.
Appreciate that. I needed you to say that on air so I can get people to listen to it. But I appreciate the call and thanks so much, sir.
Okay. So keep up the good work, and we'll listen to the other questions that are coming up after me.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, this is Praveen from New York. Will the Israeli-Palestinian war, will that affect the revaluation of the dinar?
In my opinion, in no way whatsoever. I think it's completely unlinked to what's going on there. However, I will say one thing about what's going on there. I really think that this time, unfortunately, there's going to be an escalation because I think the Israelis have finally decided that they're going to deal permanently with Hamas. But I don't think it's going to affect what's going on in Iraq. I certainly hope not. I don't think that it will, but I do think that things are going to be different this time. I could be wrong. I just have, I've been watching this for decades. And I think Israel has finally come to the point where they really don't care what anyone else thinks. If some nation was lobbing missiles at Manhattan or Long Island and we took them out, the rest of the world would understand. But for some reason, because it's Israel, and of course the dome is a passive response. It's just defending themselves, blunting the blows. But when they came up with the ultimatum and said, they used the word, we're going to end this permanently, in a statement from the Israelis, when they said that there's not going to be a ceasefire just to merely allow you to regroup and reload. We're not going to allow that. If this continues, we're going to end it and continue. So I really think it's going to escalate, but it's going to be located basically in that area, in Gaza, not the West Bank, but I'd say Gaza and parts of Israel. So. But I don't see it affecting the situation with the dinar at all. Okay?
Okay, another thing. Now, if the dinar floats, are you going to wait until it reaches an acceptable currency value for you to wait?
That's a speculative question. One of the issues that could be a problem is the timing. There's a tax deadline that we're going to have to meet. So if the reinstitution comes at an inopportune time, we will be forced to exchange a certain amount of currency irrespective of the exchange rate in order to satisfy the tax liability. But if, for example, the reinstitution were to happen in the first half of a given quarter, that gives us 6 to 8 weeks to allow the currency to increase in value if it comes out of an artificially low float. So we're just going to, once again, play that one by ear.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. We got, let's see, Doug came back in here. That's 405. That's Doug.
It is. I had a question.
You've done this before. You come back for a second helping.
Well, Clay touched on it, and I had it in mind before we ended the last call. And anyway, financial stability. The world's financial system does not like aberrations. And one of the things and they don't like imbalance. Because one of the things I think that is evident right now is that there is an imbalance in the value of Iraq's currency compared to its neighboring countries. I mean, it's a scenario that we deal with all the time when we're dealing with China, because they artificially devalue their currency, and that is why Iraq has to. I believe that's why Iraq has to increase the value, so that you don't have such a trade advantage over your neighbors and a disadvantage to them to you as far as the exchange and purchase of goods. The second thing is, I have to differ with you a little bit on the regional instability. I think that the potential that Iran has as far as lighting the keg of gunpowder over there is such that there has to be a quieting down before this can happen, just because there are too many international players. This isn't just Iraq. Like you said, everybody wants to get paid, but they don't want to have to do it in an upheaval scenario. So, in my opinion, when this calms down, we can probably move forward. But with this powder keg as much as it is, and with Iran poking its nose into Iraq again, it just seems like they have to get that settled first, in my opinion.
And you might be right there, but of course none of us are the Oracle of Delphi, but you left one thing out, which I think is important. The IMF has told Iran that the revaluation of their rial is linked to the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. So if their troublemaking results in blowback to Iraq, it's going to be blowback to them too. So hopefully they're never going to behave. They're just not good people. All right. So that being said, we'll just have to see what happens. But Iran is in real economic straits, and the IMF is in a position to assist them. But if they're going to continue to misbehave, they're going to have problems.
Well, they've got a little bit of a reprieve. I understand that Biden wants to release $1 billion in frozen assets to them as a gesture of goodwill, which is an idiot thing to do, because they will never take it as a gesture of goodwill. They'll just use it to fund the missions that they're going on now. So, I mean, it blows my mind. It's just incredulous, the thinking that goes on as far as how to deal with various countries around the world, and that is not going to be seen as a gesture of goodwill.
No, and I don't think Joe Biden knows what day it is. So he's not calling the shots. He's their sock puppet as far as I'm concerned. It's just the way it is. I try to stay away from making defamatory, or not defamatory, but controversial remarks. But the guy's a complete train wreck. So hopefully he won't screw this up. We'll see. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Thank you again. Take care.
Okay, Doug. Take care. Okay, we got a caller here. Oh, my God. It's 312. That's 312. That can't possibly be less.
Yes, it is. What's
John,
up,
been a hiatus there, my brother?
Yeah, I have been. But I've been listening when I can. But good to hear your voice. I didn't have a question until the other caller, 2 callers back, which he got or talked about the currency. And the question that I have is, have any of your contacts given you rates on any of the currencies that we are holding right now? Have you heard any rates?
I've gotten a lot of rates from a lot of people. I've been told by individuals that they've exchanged. I don't believe anyone's exchanged because after they've told me they've exchanged, they said that they signed an NDA. Well, if they signed an NDA, they weren't supposed to tell me they exchanged, so I don't believe them. As far as I'm concerned, it ain't going to happen till it happens, and anyone that gets it right is just firing darts blindfolded. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen exactly. We can only make educated guesses based on the information at hand. But I've just, and it's only my gut, I just have a feeling that this thing could pop soon. Just a feeling. I've explained as best I can why I feel that way. But like I said, I got the article in Delphi. I'm sharing with you information. I have had experience doing this, but never in a situation as complicated economically, geopolitically, where the fight between a one world digital currency, cryptocurrencies, precious metals. I mean, there's just so much going on. It's hard to thread the needle.
All righty. Well, you sound like you've healed up well from your collision accident some time ago.
I'm good.
Well, that's great. Great to hear your voice, man. Tell the professor I said hi, and thanks for coming on today.
Yes, sir. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye.
Well, this was our last call for today. This was our first complete call in nearly 2 months. It was great to talk with some of you again and share some of this information with you. For those of you calling in for the first time, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial package. It has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about trusts and how they work. You can review the information. You're under absolutely no obligation by receiving that package, although it does contain everything you need should you decide to proceed. You can certainly contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature happens between now and then, we will try to schedule an emergency conference call and get out an emergency email. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.